Greetings of the day. Dear learners, this is Dr. Shamili Mandal and I am here with the second lecture of my 10th module. In this, I'll be dealing with the folk and the modern society, challenges and acceptance. And my second lecture will have instances from East and Northeast India. It means I'll try to show you how folk has been ingrained, how folk has been challenged, and how folk has been accepted as a part of the culture, with reference to how it has been applied in the case of Northeast India and East India. First, I will start with Bengal. In the process of building a modern society in Bengal, folk culture has undergone both preservation and transformation. For example, we have the very famous folk songs called the Baul, the Bhatiyali and the Jhumur. So the Baul songs I have mentioned earlier are representations of the society and they promote God as more spiritual. Tagore, a very famous author we have, the very famous poet, the Nobel laureate, right? And he is known throughout the world, the Bengali poet. Rabindranath Tagore took instances from the Baul song and incorporated it in his literature, which gave Baul song more acclaim, and people from all strata tried to relate with the Baul understanding, the Baul philosophy. Because Tagore ingrained it, it became, a part of the Tagore legacy, and people who were following Tagore, who were, performing Tagore, also got to know about Baul. It's not that Baul was not famous, but Tagore's help, you can say Tagore's incorporation actually elevated the Baul. It made it more mainstream rather than being a part of the folk. Similarly, folk arts like Pottochitru and Katha embroidery were revived through government and private initiatives, finding a place in modern design and international markets. Religious and seasonal festivals like Gajon, Chorok and Mansha Puja, once limited to rural areas, are now recognized as vital expressions of Bengali heritage and are often showcased during cultural festivals. However, not all aspects of folk culture were carried into modernity. Caste-based occupations, rituals and social hierarchies intrinsic to many folk traditions were increasingly rejected in favor of egalitarian values promoted by modern education and urban life. Practices rooted in superstition such as witchcraft or shamanic healing were discouraged by nationalist movements and are now marginalized or legally restricted. Thus, while folk culture continues to shape Bengal's cultural identity, its evolution has been selective, embracing those aspects that could be harmonized with modern aesthetics and values, while sidelining those seen as incompatible with contemporary ideals. The example I gave you of Tagore, right, that he took inspiration from the Baul, made Baul more mainstream. We have been, as I have said, selective. We took the essence of Baul, but not the essence of others which we feel should not be a part of the mainstream culture. Here I have attached a photo of a Baul performer, a female Baul performer, performing in public, and you can see with modern accessories, not accessories we can say, but modern technology, taking a mic and other stuffs, also with a sound system. Now I'll come to the instances of other parts of this area. In Orissa, the integration of folk culture into modern society has been a nuanced process, where certain elements have been embraced, while others have been rejected or marginalized. For example, the folk music of Orissa we have, the Odissi dance we have, the Chhau we have incorporated them in modern society. There's a very interesting take that Odissi dance, it was a part of the temple dance and it became a classical dance. But its predecessor, Gotipua, it is still performed by members from not so upper class of the Orissa fraternity. So it shows, as I have said, that we are selective of what we want to interpret and draw inspiration from. Chhau dance, which is vibrant mask and acrobatic movements, has gained recognition beyond rural context, especially in the global folk dance community. The state's traditional crafts like Pottochitra painting, silver filigree work and ikat weaving have been preserved and commercialized, blending traditional techniques with modern designs for both domestic and global markets. However, certain aspects of Orissa's folk culture, particularly those tied to traditional practices and rituals, have been marginalized or altered. Before going to that, I would like to explain the photo which I have attached here. You can see it's a silver filigree work which is very famous in Orissa, and besides being traditionally used, it is used in recent jewellery even. For example, I have given here a photo of the silver filigree earrings, which is very minimal and which is very easy to carry, and we can wear it in daily life. So that is how we have imbibed folk culture for our own convenience, because filigree work is normally done in heavy jewellery, but you see here, right, it's for the daily purpose wear and making it more relevant. Now I come to the ritual related to folk beliefs like tantric rituals and animal sacrifices in the context of specific tribal and rural practices have been rejected in favor of more sanitized and more religious practices in Orissa. The patriarchal nature of some tribal customs such as child marriage or restrictive gender roles in certain communities has also been discarded as society embraces more progressive values. Additionally, the use of tribal languages and local dialects, once an essential part of community identity, has been increasingly overshadowed by Orissa as the state's official language, the Oriya language, by Hindi and English in urban context, which is diminishing the prominence of indigenous forms of expression. Thus, Orissa's modern cultural identity is shaped by a blend of acceptance, adaptation and rejection, where folk traditions that align with national or global cultural events are preserved, while others deemed incompatible with modern values are sidelined. Now I come to the instances from Jharkhand. The shift to a contemporary society in Jharkhand has resulted in a selective assimilation of the traditional culture. Now in Jharkhand, we all know that the folk dancing actually involves the tribal dancing, right? We all know that because Jharkhand is full of tribes, of various tribes actually, and they all have their unique habits, unique dance practices, you can say folk theatre, songs, and they are also rituals. So they are very different. Most of the tribes are very different from each other, and they have formed the culture of Jharkhand. In addition to being essential to tribal life, traditional dances like Chhau and Paika are also encouraged by cultural groups and displayed at national events to symbolize the identity of the state. They are performed during regional festivals like Sarhul and Karma. In the same vein, traditional crafts and arts like as wall paintings from Sohrai and Khovar have been resurrected and modified for commercial use, garnering appreciation for their aesthetic and symbolic significance. However, in the contemporary setting, several facets of Jharkhand's folk culture have been disregarded or ignored. Once essential to communal life, indigenous governance systems and tribal customary rules have been supplanted by official legal and administrative frameworks. Here I have attached a photo, as you can see, and what I meant to say, that previously there were indigenous work, indigenous, we can say, administration, which has been replaced by government officials and government administration. What the folk, you can say, the tribal people did for themselves were taken by the government, and more schemes and more welfare, you can say, schemes were organized for the tribal. But the question remains whether the tribe or the tribal people benefits from them, or they are still unaware of what benefits they deserve. Furthermore, community-based storytelling, tribal languages and oral traditions have all declined, particularly among younger generations who have been exposed to formal schooling in English and Hindi, the two prominent languages. In support of mainstream religious practices too, and rationalist viewpoints, traditions with roots in animism, spirit worship and rites involving sacrifice have also been stigmatized or shunned. Traditional jobs and forest-based livelihoods, which are essential to tribal folk culture, are being supplanted by wage laborer, and industrial jobs in urban and semi-urban regions are separating people from their cultural heritage. Therefore, Jharkhand's contemporary identity still incorporates components of its tribal folk traditions, but it does so in a selective manner, rejecting those deemed outmoded or incompatible with present social norms and embracing those that are in line with current cultural pride. Now, I come to the instances or the examples of Bihar. I have attached a photo here. You can see a very famous Bihari food we have, the litti chokha. So previously this food was eaten by people mostly of the lower class, because the components of this food gives you energy for a longer time. But now this has been commercialized, right? And people from all strata are having litti chokha, and there are restaurants, high-end restaurants, which are serving this food as a part of the Bihari cuisine, and people throughout the world are introducing this cuisine in their menus. We can say it has been globalized, and these are some of the acceptances we can say of the culture, but it has also has challenges, because now it doesn't remain synonymous to the Bihari culture. It has become more of a national thing. Due to historical, social and economic shifts, Bihar's modernization process has included both the adoption and rejection of many facets of folk culture, and that is where I gave you the example of litti chokha, that this was a part of the folk culture, but now it has become a part of the modernization. The state's identity has been greatly influenced by its rich folk traditions, some of which have been preserved while others have been changed or abandoned in the face of modernization. The social issues and emotional life of rural Bihar are reflected in traditional folk music and dance genres, including Bideshiya, Jat Jatin and Bhikhari Thakur's theatre, which have been accepted as cultural treasures. The core of these performances has been preserved while being made accessible to contemporary audiences through adaptations for radio, television and cultural festivals. In the same line, we can say Madhubani painting, which was formerly a women's domestic ritual art form in the Mithila region, has also gained international recognition. Caste-based social stratification and the customs that go along with it are amongst the most important aspects of folk culture that have been disapproved in the contemporary setting. There has been a growing challenge to traditional caste-based systems and customs, such as those that limited participation in public events or admission to specific temples depending on one's caste. On one hand, where we have taken this litti chokha, Madhubani painting and other things, there are also some folk rituals and beliefs which have been discarded. And what are they? They are the sacrifices, the human sacrifices, the witch hunting and the witchcraft, you can say. These part of the folk culture, they have not been taken into the mainstream society. The superstitions, black magic and other rituals, they are actually harmful or based on irrational fears that has been rejected. And from both the government and civil society organizations have worked to reduce the influences of these beliefs, which often led to violence or social unrest. Awareness campaigns and legal interventions have significantly reduced such practices. Although agriculture continues to be the mainstay of Bihar's economy, technology and industrialization in the agricultural sector have completely eclipsed the folk customs associated with traditional farming methods. Older, less effective methods like slash and burn agriculture and conventional irrigation systems have been abandoned in favor of more contemporary, sustainable farming methods. Although they are still used in some rural areas, these methods are becoming less common as a result of market-driven agricultural reforms and technological developments. Next, I will be talking about the instances or the examples from Assam. The folk culture in Assam has been modernized, commercialized and accepted, reflecting a dynamic balance between modernity and the ancientness. The Bihu songs, which are a prominent, you can say, part of the Ahomia culture or the Assamese culture, they have been made modernized. How? Because Bihu songs are being introduced in the discotheques where they are being played with certain beats and making them a part of the Assamese youth, making it more globalized. I have attached a photo here of a Majuli mask. These Majuli masks, okay, which are a part of the dance form, the Kshatriya dance form in Assam, has become a part of the Halloween celebrations, and people are wearing them, people are keeping them as artifacts in their houses. So the commercialization has helped in livelihood of people and making these you can say more widespread, but it also has its own challenges. These folk forms which I mentioned were historically included into religious observances, communal festivals and agricultural rituals, but they have been not rejected but rather incorporated in modernity, adapted and interpreted in novel ways. Next, I am going to talk about the instances from Arunachal Pradesh. As Arunachal Pradesh transitioned from a traditional to a contemporary society, several aspects of folk culture were selectively accepted and rejected. The state's many ethnic populations, its distinct physical setting and the quick changes in society brought about by urbanization, education and political events have all had an impact on this process. We have the very famous festival called the Adi tribes Solung festival, the Tibetan New Year Losar and the Galo communities Mopin festival. So we can say that Arunachal Pradesh is largely known by these festivals, and these tribal festivals, we can say, due to the recent wave of modernization, it has been opened out to the outer people, you can say to the outsiders of Arunachal Pradesh. They can be a part of these festivals, they can participate in those festivals, which was earlier not allowed much, making it more, as I said, more open, more inclusive to the society. In addition to preserving the cultural identity, these celebrations promote solidarity throughout the community. And these festivities still have a traditional feel to them. Also, they have changed, as I said, in certain respects because it is being open to the public due to government backing and growing tourism related commercialization. The traditional clothing like the Apatani's Mibu outfit and the galos is still worn for significant festivals, ceremonies and cultural events. These clothing styles are sometimes modified for modern use and symbolize pride in ethnic identity. Similarly, traditional crafts like weaving, wood carving and hand looming are highly prized, particularly in rural regions. Additionally, public initiatives and tourism are used to promote modern adaptations of these crafts, expanding their market reach. An important component of Arunachal Pradesh folk culture has been its traditional belief systems, which includes animistic customs and faith in spirits. But in favor of contemporary scientific knowledge, some detrimental customs and superstitions like animal sacrifices or the belief in black magic have been disregarded. For example, certain tribes used to conduct New, which is a type of exorcism, but these traditions have decreased as awareness and education have grown. In a similar vein, both contemporary society and religious organizations are increasingly against the practice of offering animals as sacrifices to placate gods or spirits. Although many Arunachal Pradesh tribal communities were matrilineal or egalitarian in nature, patriarchal customs also remained in place in some groups, limiting women's access to leadership roles and property. These gender differences are being aggressively addressed as a result of modernity and the impact of international feminist movement. In Arunachal Pradesh, women's role in both public and private life have changed, and now they have more access to education and political participation. Although there are still some obstacles to overcome, but social reforms and the legal frameworks are attempting to lessen gender-based discrimination. Now, I'll talk to you about the instances from Meghalaya. Firstly, I'll talk about the photo which I have attached here. So, the bamboo dance in Meghalaya is very prominent, okay, and they performed it during harvest, and you can say according to the seasons, the agricultural seasons. But now, these bamboo dances are a part of the fitness exercises, and now they are being performed anytime, in any, like you can say, part of the day and in any season. They are no more, you can say, synonymous to agricultural festivities, but rather as a part, you can say, globalized and modernized for the public. I will talk to you about how the contemporary society has resulted in also in the selective acceptance and rejection of many facets of folk culture in Meghalaya. One, I talked about the bamboo dance. But the Khasis, Garos and Jaintiyas have been maintained and modified to fit the modern society, while other aspects have been changed or abandoned to conform to democratic ideals and modern values. At cultural gatherings and festivals, indigenous musicians like the Dwitara, a stringed instrument, and Khasi women still dress traditionally in Jain shem and dhara. In addition to surviving, these components have been reimagined, and particularly among the Khasis and the Jaintiyas, Meghalaya's matrilineal society is one of the most distinctive and highly esteemed feature of its folk culture. In this tradition, what happens is the youngest daughter of the family gets the property. As you can understand by the term matrilineal means the matriarchs rule the Khasis, Jaintiyas and the Garos. Whatever the mother says or whatever the mother's family says, they get the most prominence in the society. In most of the cases of these tribes, in the marriages actually, like in normal society, the marriages we have is like the women goes to the man's house, means the bride goes to the bridegroom's house. But in the matrilineal society, it sometimes happens that the bridegroom comes to stay in the bride's house because they get the property of the bride. In contrast to patriarchal systems, this is emphasized as a progressive facet of tribal life that supports women's rights. In a contemporary setting, it still has an impact on social standing, property ownership, and family structure. Now I come to some of the aspects of, which have been, you can say, not incorporated in the modern society. One of them is witch hunting. Remember, witch hunting, witchcraft, and its practices is very prevalent in the tribal communities of India, be it in the northeast or be it in the central India or be it in the northern India. It is a very predominant aspect. The healing, the shamanism, they are a very important aspect. Coming to, as I said, witch hunting, especially in rural communities where accused witches were occasionally held responsible for illness or bad luck, were actually punished. But in recent decades, this practice has faced significant legal and social opposition, even though it is not exclusive to Meghalaya. Through education, awareness campaigns, and the implementation of anti-witch hunting laws, human rights organizations, activists, and the government have attempted to abolish these beliefs. Women have historically been excluded from positions of political leadership, such as the village council, despite the social prominence that matrimony affords them. The paradox that women possess property but are not allowed to participate in politics is being contested more and more. Civil society organizations and women's rights groups have pushed for reforms that would allow women to participate equally in community level decision making. Although there has been some progress, resistance still exists within conservative circles. Next, I am going to talk to you about the Tripura, the instances or example from Tripura. As it transitions to a contemporary society, Tripura, a state in northeastern India, is shaped by its Hindu and indigenous people and has experienced profound social changes. As the state strikes between a balance of its ancient customs and modernization, education and government, the folk culture have been selectively accepted and rejected. Tripura's cultural life revolves around its traditional festivals. Some important holidays are the Khorchi Puja, the Goriya Puja, and the Ker Puja. For example, Agartala, the capital of Tripura, hosts a significant celebration called Khorchi Puja to commemorate the 14 Tripuri deities. Now, coming to the folk music and dance of Tripura. So we have the very famous, the very prominent language of Tripura called the Kokborok. And I have attached here a photo of how the Kokborok songs are being, mixed modernly in a modern way and is a part of the discotheques, getting it, to a wider audience and popularizing the language and the Kokborok music. As an essential part of the Tripura's cultural identity, I have given you the example of the Kokborok, and there are dance styles which have changed to incorporate contemporary elements but are still ingrained in Tripuran cultural traditions, demonstrating how folk culture may change without losing its traditional meanings. As representations of traditional craftsmanship, folk art, particularly Tripuri weaving and rural crafts, is widely respected and still flourishes today. Through travel and exhibitions, the elaborate patterns and traditional motifs included in Tripuri shawls and other woven textiles are conserved and even promoted. Similar to many other regions of India, Tripura's indigenous cultures have been influenced by societal hierarchies, and caste and gender-based discrimination were mirrored in traditional folk custom. For instance, the strict social roles that women were expected to play in certain tribal communities, where they were frequently assigned to household duties, have been progressively questioned in contemporary times. Gender disparity in Tripura has gradually decreased as a result of women's empowerment via economic independence, political engagement, and education. As urbanization and technical improvements spread into rural regions, some traditional practices, those associated with isolationist attitudes towards outside culture and contemporary education, have come under growing pressure. Many indigenous groups in Tripura used to be hostile to outside influences such as contemporary education and technology. However, as the state modernizes, there has been a noticeable shift towards embracing formal education, technological tools and globalized cultural trends. It has resulted in decline of some traditional forms of isolation that once defined the rural communities. Next, I come to the instances or the examples of Nagaland. In order to preserve tribal identity and promote communal cohesion, indigenous celebrations like the Sekreni, Moatsu, Tokhuemong and Gara of the various tribes are still regularly observed. The state's contemporary cultural narrative incorporates these festivals, which center on concepts like harvest, purification and gratitude. One of the best examples of now traditional Naga festivals and performances are presented together to promote tourism and cultural pride is the government organized Hornbill Festival. The Hornbill is a very important bird of Nagaland, and the festival has been named in that manner, and they have dance, they have food, they have performances, they have song, they have theatre, and everybody tries to be a part of the Hornbill festival, and their tickets are sold actually like much advance, and people from all over the world come in the Hornbill festival attending it. So this is, we can say that how it has been modernized for a better aspect. But on the other hand, the photo which I have attached here is of a ramp walk, as you can see, and this photo has the dress of the women of Nagaland, the traditional dress of the women of Nagaland. Okay, the models are wearing them in a different draping style, much you can say like different from how the women, the tribal women drape it. So this has one, you can say, a positive aspect and also a negative aspect. The positive aspect is that the dress is being commercialized and it is becoming a part of the mainstream culture because it is being walked, like wearing the dress, models are walking in the ramp shows. But on the other hand, if you see, the dress is distorted because this is not how the way the tribal women wear the dress. The tribal women wear it in a different manner, but due to like the pressure of incorporating it into the mainstream culture, into the modern culture, to the elite class, you can say serving it to the elite class, the dress, the draping style has been distorted, actually harming the essence of the dress. Through cultural events and educational activities in the same manner, Naga folk music includes war songs, love ballads and ceremonial chants, which are also being preserved and promoted. Contemporary forms are frequently combined with traditional Naga instruments such as the bamboo mouth organ and log drum. During festivals and public gatherings, people proudly wear traditional clothing that is vibrant and features symbolic beadwork, strengthening ethnic identity in a contemporary setting. An essential component of Naga civilization is the strong sense of identity associated with clans and village groupings. The social and cultural significance of village institutions play a very important role in the administration. There is a famous head hunting custom, which was formerly a sign of bravery and masculinity. Amongst the most notable elements of pre-modern Naga society, but presently it is disapproved, and the advent of Christianity has actually kind of made it more, you can say, subjugated, that this type of, you can say, activities should not be encouraged and promoted. The head hunting. By prioritizing education, compassion and peace over conflict and tribal competition, the Christian missionaries significantly contributed to the change in the societal ideas. Naga traditional culture was once organized with rigid roles according to clan hierarchy, age and gender. Younger generations are no longer constrained by the strict duties due to contemporary education, urbanization and employment alternatives. Today's youth are creating new identities that combine modern goals like employment in technology, fashion, music and politics with traditional pride. Now I come to the instances from Sikkim. Building a modern society in Sikkim has required a careful balancing act between upholding the rich folk traditions of its many ethnic groups and adjusting to the needs of contemporary social equality. Sikkim's folk culture is firmly anchored in its communal festivals, agrarian way of life and spiritual rituals. Nevertheless, industrialization has resulted in the rejection or reform of some traditions. At cultural festivals and official gatherings, folk dances such as the Chufat of the Lepchas, the Singhicham of the Bhutias and the Marunis of the Nepals are frequently performed. These performances adapt to current themes while also preserving the traditional music and folktale. Here we have seen, I have attached a photo of how the flags which were a part of the religious festivities, you can say, or a religious part of Sikkim are used nowadays for decorating. We are very much well known of the flags of which I have attached a photo. You can see it, people kind of decorating their houses with it, people kind of decorating their bikes with it, their cars with it, and everywhere you can see these flags nowadays. But previously this was only a part of the religious culture which has been kind of made to the public due to modernization. Traditional dress of the Lepchas also, of the Dumbra for men and Dum Dum for women, Bhutias, Bakhu and Nepalis continue to be worn on special occasions. These outfits along with crafts like thanka painting, wood carving and handloom weaving are preserved and promoted through cultural festivals. On the other hand, strong animistic and shamanic customs including Bongthing and other rituals to placate spirits were part of Sikkimese culture in the past but have faded as Buddhism, Christianity and modern education have spread. Some spirit-based rituals and beliefs, especially those viewed as illogical or oppressive, have been discredited. Rural folk customs and animal sacrifices during certain festivals or rituals have also been discarded. Now, we come to the end, the second lecture. What I have tried to explain here is how we are being selective. Some we are accepting the folk culture, some we are not accepting. Some we are making it as a part of the main culture, inclusive, and some we are just disregarding because we don't think it should be a part of the culture. And that is how folk culture has evolved in the modern society along with its acceptance and the challenges. Thank you.